Hi guys, um, this is my boy, this is Alfie. Yeah, doesn't like having his picture taken or anything like that, but that's my beautiful boy. So, on at Christmas, we had another dog, puppy dog, who was fitting. We realised there was something wrong with him. He attacked me, he attacked Alfie. Nearly took his eye out. Had to have an operation on his eyelid to sew it up. Obviously, we had to let the dog go, the other dog. So over time, from Christmas until last week, his eye went a little bit cloudy, but because of his age, the vet said it's fine. You can see through it. We're not going to do anything because there's no point with his age and everything like that. Do you know what I mean? When it's not necessary. Okay, fair enough. Over time, it went cloudy. On Friday, just gone. It leaked. Well, we realised it had gone really cloudy. It leaked. So I rushed him to the vets on Friday. And on Friday night, they operated. Said he was going to lose his eye, obviously. I knew that. So that was fine. So on the Friday night, they operated. And on the Saturday morning, I got a phone call to say, come and take your dog for a walk. Which confused me. I said, what do you mean? She said, oh, come and take your dog for a walk. Wouldn't you like to take your dog for a walk? So I thought, something fishy is going on here. This is Ashley Vets in Chorlton. So I shot down there. They took me in the back. So going through the back, it was dirty. The floor was dirty and there was dirty stuff all over the place. I thought, okay. Got to the cage. I'm telling you now, I've never seen anything so disgusting in all my life. He was swimming with pee. Bearing in mind he'd just had an op night before. The whole cage was flooded with wee and poo. He had a drip on which hadn't been taped to his wrist, to his leg, so the drip was trailing in it. It hadn't been taped to his where they put the needle in. So obviously that the wee was going in there. He had a muzzle on because he's terrified of the vets. So we had to put a muzzle on him in the beginning. They kept the muzzle on him. As soon as he operated, they shoved a muzzle on him, which was over the stitches, and it was a hard muzzle. So that was pressing on his stitches. He was in the cage with the muzzle on. So even if he wanted to drink, he couldn't. And it was painful. You could tell it was painful. So I said to him, why have you left the muzzle on him? So the nurse didn't say anything. He was dripping. He was soaking wet. My lead was dripping wet. Anyway, I took him round the corner and he broke my heart. He obviously didn't want to wee and poo because he'd already done it in the cage. So I took him back and I said, why is the cage swimming with pee? She said, oh dear. That's not a one-time thing. And I said to her, I said, he's not just done that. So she just looked at me. What could she say? She had nothing to say. It was weekend. I know they're busy, but what? So I had word with the vet. And I said to him, what's going on? Why have you left a muzzle on him? It's quite clearly pressing. And his eye was like bulging. And I mean, really bulging. I mean, I know he's just had an op, but the where they covered it, the flap of skin where they covered it, they stitched it all around, which wasn't very good stitching, but it was really bulging. So I said to the vet, why is his eye like that? One, why have you got a muzzle on him? Your dog's vicious. My dog is the softest dog going. But if you treat him badly, yeah, he's going to growl at you. So I said, why is it bulging like that? Oh, well, he wouldn't stop bleeding, so we packed it with gauze swabs. So I said, yeah. No, well, we packed it. I said, are you trying to tell me you've sewn bloody gauze swabs into his eye? So he said, well, we had to because it wouldn't stop bleeding. I said, you've actually sewn them in? He said, we really packed it. So you've really packed gauze swabs into his eye? sewn it in so tight that it's bulging like that. I said, and the stitches, it's bleeding through the stitches because the stitches is pulling at the skin. I said, you're trying to tell me you've done that? So he said, yeah, anyway, you can take him home. He wanted to get rid because he knew. So I said, right. So I brought him home and he started being sick. He was sick when I took him for a walk, and I told him that and he ignored me. So I brought him home. I was terrified. And he was sick and his heart was pounding and he couldn't breathe properly. So I said to my son, we're taking him back. So we took him back, and I asked the vet, why have you treated my dog this way? Why have you done what you've done? Why have you packed it in there? You told me to take my dog home when he was ill. You told me to take him home. He'd only just had an op. He was sick, and I told you he'd been sick, and you told me to take him home. I said, let me tell you, I've been in touch with 3 vets, because the night before I rang 3 vets when he told me about, because I kept him overnight. I rang 3 vets. And now these are prominent vets. These are not rubbish people. It cost me a lot because I had to pay to speak to them. And every single one of them said, yes, you pack it, but you don't sew the packing in. You pack it, you put pressure on it. If it doesn't work, you take the packing out and you redo it. Eventually it will stop bleeding. But I've never heard of anybody sewing gauze into it like that. So I said, right. So that made me feel better knowing that what I'm saying is right. So when I took him back to the vets, my son came with me and I said, I want to know why you've sewn that gauze into there. I said, I'll tell you now before you say anything. I've spoken to 3 prominent vets and they've all told me the same thing. You don't do that. Well, he could have bled to death. You don't do that. You put gauze in, you pack it, you put pressure on it. Take it out, you put more in, you pack it, you put pressure on it until it stops bleeding. And they've all said the same thing, it will stop bleeding. I want you to take that gauze out. Not only that, he's got to have another operation because he said, oh, we will take it out when you bring him in next week. I said, what? You intend to keep that gauze in his eye until next week? I said, you take it out now. Because that is festering in there. That's coagulating. And it's going to cause an infection. And you're going to kill my boy. So he said, oh, you know, you're getting all upset and excited. I said, let me tell you, I owe this boy my life. My life. I said, and I am not going to stand back and watch you destroy him. I said, because that's what you're doing. You operate on him because you had to operate on him the second time anyway. And you take that gauze out of there. And I can guarantee you it will have stopped bleeding. Oh, well, I'll have to speak to the vet. I said, I don't care who you speak to. You're taking it out. I said, I'm disgusted. So he said, right, I'll speak to the boss. Come back in. He said, yeah, we'll take it out. I thought you might. So they did. But the thing is, he said he might not survive. I said, if he doesn't survive, I'm suing you. Because you had no right packing that in and sewing it up. He wouldn't have had to have a second operation. And possibly lose his life. Anyway, they took it out. So I said to him, was it covered in blood? It wasn't. It wasn't. You shoved dry. He was in agony. You could tell he was in agony. The bulge was unbelievable. I said, tell me why you put a muzzle over his stitches. Well, I said, you left him in the cage with it on. Well, if we have to see to him while he's in the cage. I said, why are you telling me you can't put a muzzle on a dog? You're a vet. You can't put a muzzle on a dog. He was comatose. You could have hung him upside down, he wouldn't have bothered. Anyway, so I said, I'm disgusted. I said, I'm going to complain. And I mentioned the cage, the way the cage was. So when I got Alfie, the woman behind the counter said, oh, are you going to pay? I said, beg your pardon. said, "Are you seriously asking me that?" So she said, I said, "You get your boss to ring me." I said, "And I don't mean just to get your boss to ring me, the big boss, the big man." So she said, "Right." So the night, nobody rang me that day. So the night after, I got a phone call from the owner of the place. He said, "Well, yeah, had we not packed it and sewn it up, he would have died." I said, "Look, don't be telling me that. I was a nurse for 30 years. Don't be telling me that." I said, "I spoke to 3 prominent vets, and these aren't just vets that have been qualified for a couple of years." I said, "They've all said the same thing. Yes, you do pack it, and you put gauze over it and seal it in that way. You do not sew it in." He said, "Oh, yeah, we had no choice. If we hadn't done it, he'd have died." I said, "Don't be telling me. You're just saying that to shut me up. You're not shutting me up. You had no right doing that." I said, "Plus the way they treated him." So he said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Right, we had to put a muzzle on him because he was rough with Alfie and Alfie was growling. So I said, okay, put a muzzle on him." So I put the muzzle on him. And the vet was like, "Oh, you know when you don't want to touch something because it's too hot." And he was like that with Alfie. I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Well, I don't want to be bitten." I said, "How are you going to get bitten? He's got a muzzle on." And he was still doing it. And I said, "What are you doing?" So I held the back of the muzzle. I said, "Are you satisfied now? He's not just got a muzzle on. I'm holding it." And I thought, what is this lad? Is he qualified or what? So I explained this to the vet. And I told him about the cage. He didn't seem too bothered at all. He just didn't seem bothered. So I said, "You know what? I'm not paying for the second operation. I understand you have to pay for the first operation. That's fine. I'm not paying for the second. And I'm not paying for anything else." I said, "If you don't get rid of that vet or sort him out, I will. I will get in touch with the relevant authorities." I said, "Because he should not be practicing." I said, "If anything happens to my dog because of this." Anyway, I paid for the first lot. And he said, "That's fair enough. You don't pay for Now, if he had the courage of his conviction, he would have said, "No, I had to do it. It was important that we did it. If we hadn't have done it, he'd have died. And you will be paying for it. Because I saved his life." But he didn't. He said, "Oh, that's fair enough." Yeah, because you know you're wrong. That's Ashley Vets in Cholton. Please do not take your animal there. I mean, he's all right now. He's lost his eye. The stitching's all awful. The way they stitched it up is just awful. They stitched right across the... instead of stitching the flap round, they've just stitched right across it. But once they'd done that and they took it out and I brought him home... Well, I won't leave him there. I brought him home and he's great. Catch a frisbee, catch a ball, because I reckon that he couldn't see in the eye before he had it done anyway, so he's used to doing it with one eye. But he is happy as Larry. I'll show my boy. I'm not taking him out. Aren't you, baby? He's my boy. So this is his eye. You see how they stitch right across it instead of stitching round it? And they said, "Oh, the dissolvable stitches." So, I mean, it's not very nice. But yeah. Okay, guys, see ya.